The Communist Party of China, the CPC, the party, just did what it has never done before. And it is important to appreciate what happened and why. It happened in New York at Book Expo America, where an unprecedented series of 5 books titled Understanding the CPC was published in English by the Party Building Books publishing house. Many foreigners do not understand the CPC, particularly its historic transformation from a revolutionary party seeking power to a ruling party exercising power. The book launch was a milestone. I am not a dispassionate observer. I wrote the introduction to the books and gave a speech at the launch. So, for understanding the CPC, we go to New York, my hometown, to get closer to China. The Communist Party of China, the CPC, explains to the world how it did it by publishing in English a book series titled China Today, Understanding the Communist Party of China. Launched in May 2015 in New York at Book Expo America, this series about the CPC by the CPC has 5 volumes. 1. Exploring the miracle, the truths behind China's modernization. 2. Serving the people, the governance philosophy of the CPC. 3. Governing China, the CPC's philosophy in practice. 4. China and the CPC, the challenges we face and how we respond. And 5. The Good Fight, China's recent battle against corruption.
The series explains well how the CPC led a country of 1.3 billion people to rapidly realize its goal of modernization. It analyzes the domestic and international challenges the CPC faces and how China is responding while adhering to Marxism and socialism with Chinese characteristics, and with full confidence in its path, theories, and system. The series presents the primary and core aspects of the CPC's philosophy, system, and practice of governance.
The CPC's outreach to the world is a milestone, presenting what the CPC wants the world to know. It's good to know what the CPC wants the world to know.
It helps readers understand the governance made by the CPC and explains the uniqueness and advantages of China's political system.
This is just the beginning. The CPC is now committed to opening up and explaining itself to international audiences.
The second series, Understanding China's Development, and the third series, Understanding China's 4 Comprehensive Strategic Blueprint, are being written and will be published soon. They will also be translated into English, French, and German by the Foreign Language Press for overseas readers.
I participated in the launch of the CPC books in New York and argued why understanding China requires understanding the CPC. The CPC, the Communist Party of China, for the first time ever, is publishing a series of books in English explaining how it works, its philosophy. So what's the significance of China now really reaching out to the world to explain how it works?
Well, I think it is really important because now with the development of China, there is a great interest in getting to know more about China today. And people find it still quite hard to understand a complex, very complex country. So I think this book expo is the very good occasion for people to come and visit and to find the books they like. And especially at this book fair, the President Xi Jinping's book called The Governors of China has been launched. And also the book about understanding the CPC party. I think that's important because a lot of people have learned a lot about the economic development of China over the years, but not many people understand how all this happened. China has been, I think any country is developing very fast, but China has been developing very fast. It has changed a lot. But how did this work and how did this happen? Actually, I think the book on the CPC, on the governance of China, have tried to explain the reasons behind all the transformation and changes.
This is something new that you've now innovated, where you want the world outside the party, outside of China, to also understand what the party is doing. Is this a very significant strategic change?
我们这本图书呢叫内宣与外宣并重。
Wang Danqu is deputy editor-in-chief, Party Building Books Publishing House, and an editorial member of the Understanding the CPC book series. The Party Building Books Publishing House specializes in books and audio and video products related to the CPC, including theoretical research, job guidelines, training materials, and personal management, among others. It has been awarded many major prizes and was chosen as one of the top 100 publishing houses in China. The Party Building Books Publishing House and Foreign Languages Press jointly published the book series China Today, Understanding the Communist Party of China.
特别是对于国外的这个广大读者来说，这是一个新的举措，对于我们出版社来说也是一次探索。我们知道习近平总书记提出过要求，说我们呢要这个增强对外传播能力的建设，要加强对外话语的创造力、感召力和公信力。作为出版人，我们有责任、有义务把这些党中央的重大战略思想向外传播，让更多人了解它、知道它。我们希望国外的读者能够认识到我们中国共产党是如何思考的，我们是基本的执政方式是什么样子，我们可以纠正一些个不正确的理解和偏见，特别是可以改变一些个妖魔化的说法。我们在执政理念和执政方式当中，对中国的政治构架和包括我们的选举方式，我们中国共产党与政府人大这个法院、人民检察院与全国政协这个关系做了一个介绍。国外读者可能很多读者从来都没有听说过这样的事情。我们通过把这个信息传递出去，让大家认识到这是一个现代的中国共产党，是一个有现代理念、有长远眼光和宏大理想的中国共产党。
One of the key projects is the Communist Party, the CPC, publishing a series of books about itself in English for the first time. What do you think of that, and what have you heard over the years from an American perspective about the party? What are you asked about the party, and how important is this first step?
Obviously, it's a first step, and it's an important first step. But when you say, what do people ask? They don't ask. They don't say, tell me about the Communist Party. They say, oh, it's the Communist Party, it's got to be bad. So it's a knee-jerk reaction. In fact, I remember once there was a situation with a very capable person was doing some very interesting business thing. And somebody interviewed me about him. And one of the key questions is he a member of the Communist Party? I said, you know what? I don't even know. Because what he's doing has nothing to do with politics. He's in business, has nothing to do with that. I said, well, why is it important? Oh, he said it makes all the difference. I said, it does? I said, you didn't ask me, was I Democrat or Republican? Why is it so crucial that he has to say whether he's a member of the Communist Party? But that is the view.
You cannot understand China without understanding the party, China's ruling party, the Communist Party of China, the CPC. We explore the inner workings of the party with its leading thinkers and organization officials. What are the party's beliefs, practices, structure, governance, development, and challenges?
最重要的挑战是如何建设好党自身。
What's behind the intense anti-corruption campaign? What are the deep implications?
权力它是个双刃剑，
Where is the party going? What are its future prospects?
各国都会根据各自的情况，最重要达到人类的马克思当年所设想的那种美好的社会。
Explore the inner workings of the party with its leading thinkers and officials. You are watching Closer to China with me, Robert Lawrence Kuhn. In your work as a diplomat, both in New York, you have responsibility, I think, for 10 states. So I think your orbit in terms of business is bigger than many full ambassadors of many countries, so very prominent position, and your previous work as an ambassador. Do you get questions about the party, maybe not publicly but privately among people who really want to understand? What are the kinds of questions or lack of knowledge do you find among sophisticated people about China and about the party?
The interest for China is getting, very, very strong. And there are quite, when I, meet with people, when I talk to students, scholars, business people, I get all kinds of questions. But I think the main misconception about China today is that China is doing well economically, but politically is not doing so well. There are still cases of, human rights violation. China is not a democracy. But actually, I think, this is also a kind of misconception or understanding of China. China is building its own democratic society, even though that the forms of democracy might vary from country to country, but we are also building a democratic society that will bring better lives for the people. Actually, the political system is very supportive of the economic development. You would not think that China can develop so well, so fast, without a very supportive and healthy political system. I think this is actually probably where the misunderstanding lies. But I think, this is also my job, but also I think it's also the job of everybody to talk about the Chinese situation, to tell the Chinese story in a better way. I think because China has only opened, as I mentioned, only 36 years, so it's still, there's a long way to go before really the world understands us. But I see there's already a lot of progress. For example, if you look at the exhibition here, many years ago, there won't be so many stories translated into English. But today you see thousands of books that are in English and are in understandable English as well. So you see the progress. I think on the part of China, we are doing, we are working very hard to try to get us known and to communicate the Chinese story to the world. But I hope that, there is also the strong interest to learn more about China.
Any of us who know China know the ruling party today is vastly different than certainly than the Soviet Party and the Communist Party of China during the Cultural Revolution. So how then can a step be made? How do you then change the stereotype of what traditional Americans would think about the party?
Well, I think that's a very difficult task. Yes, of course, it's helpful to explain how the party works, what it does, but it's like a bad word, okay? As you say, communist, or that's like a black hat, right? So I think it's very difficult. I think the only solution to it is kind of increased transparency, increased understanding. But right now, it's absolutely a knee-jerk reaction.
In terms of understanding how China works, you really have to understand the CPC, the Communist Party of China, the ruling party. In general, from my activities, there's not that much appreciation in foreign markets for the party. How do you see the importance of understanding China to understand the party and how it works?
I think people here have to look at the CPC in a way that is different from the way they look at normal political party in the West. Because the CPC has been the ruling party in China for over 6 decades. But it maintains its close ties with the people. It has its roots in the people. It is always trying to respond to the people's aspirations and needs, always try to innovate, to keep up with the growth of China, the changes in the world. So this is a very mature party, but at the same time, it's still a very young party, because the thinking is always moving forward.
Understand about the party is something that's really new. The party in the past has not reached out to the world the way it is doing now. How do you interpret that? Why is it happening now, and what's the significance of it?
Well, actually, I would say that the CPC party has never been a secret. It's a party for the people and by the people and of the people. And however, because China has just opened up recently, actually China has only opened up over the past 30 years or so. That's why I think it's natural that people do not understand how China works and what is the governance mode, the style of running the country. So it does not mean that the party is a secretive party. It just means that there's not enough information about the party that is being communicated to the outside world. So today, I think it's also quite natural that as people wanted to understand more about China, they have to understand the government, they have to understand the party. Actually, whether you call it this party or that party, I think for the government officials, for the party members, we are actually doing the same job as any government. That is to say, trying to bring a better life for the people and trying to be a responsible stakeholder in the world, and also try to bring a sustainable development for the country. This, I think, is important not only for the 1.3 billion Chinese people, but also very, very important for the world as a whole. So I think on this account, I think as China and the United States are building this important relationship, we should try to understand more of each other, whether it's economic development, social progress, personal growth, but also try to get to know more about the CPC, about the state leaders, and about the government officials.
The American public or the American administration begin to understand the party's mechanisms. What can we do from both sides to improve communications?
I think for the American side, perhaps people should get rid of the old mindset. Try to be open, try to have a good understanding of China's history, culture, how China has developed, how China has evolved over thousands of years, and what are the real needs of the Chinese people today, and what China is going to do today and tomorrow. And for the Chinese side, I think we have to do a much better job of publicity. We have to do our best to let people know, especially the American people, to facilitate their understanding of China. And we have to tell the Chinese story in a much more effective way.
China thinks democracy in a much broader sense in terms of serving the people, etc. So how would you define or explain the nature of democracy in China, what the goal is? Not perfect, granted.
Well, I would say that probably the formation of the party system is different, but that does not mean that it is not a democracy. For example, we also have democratic parties that work together with the Chinese Communist Party. And also within the Communist Party, we have departments that in a way serve as check and balances to the leadership, to the party officials. So we have our own system of democratic formation. So as I mentioned, that this system might not be the same as the American system. Actually, if you look at all the different political systems, the Europeans are not the same as American. The Africans or some of the Asian countries have a different kind of democracy or governance than the Americans. But I think what is also important is to know what it really works. I think if the system works for China, works for the Chinese people, that makes the Chinese society make progress, I think that shows that it is the right system for China. For example, over the past 30 years or so, we have lifted over 600 million people out of deep poverty. I think if a society, a government can do this, it shows the efficiency of this government, the effectiveness of the government. So I think whether the system, whether you call it whatever system is right or not, it depends on the result it produces and whether it's adaptable to its own situation. I would like to quote one of the famous sayings that President Xi used to mention. He said that when you put on a pair of shoes as actually only the wearer of the shoes will know whether the shoes are comfortable. You know, some other forms might be very good, but they did not, actually, they are not suitable to the Chinese situation. So I think actually whatever form of the government it is, I think we have to see the goals that we are trying to achieve and the results that are coming out of it.
And in the past, from my observation, the party has not wanted to talk about itself, not because it was deliberately secretive, but because they thought people wouldn't understand or wouldn't be relevant. But that created the feeling in people's minds that it was something malevolent and something that is conspiratorial. So people will have one motivation and then others judge it exactly the opposite. So how do you begin to break through this?
I think one of the ways to do it is to be specific in given situations. For example, if there is a party secretary in a company, in a state-owned company, what's his role versus the role of the chief executive? Explain, how does it work, okay? If it's a party secretary at a university, what's his role versus the president versus the faculty? If people understood that on a specific basis, they would then know, what the relationship. This is not like the Wizard of Oz, who calls the things and behind the curtain. But that's what people think. It's been very difficult for people in China originally, in the early days, to understand the president versus the Congress. So the president comes and says, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to put this policy order. And he comes back and he can't do it. How come? He said, oh, well, we have a congressional division of party. And so you have to understand how it works. And it's the same thing in China, that people outside of China need to understand how it works, okay? And there's very little understanding of that. So then the terminology, the labels, become all important.
One of the things that impresses me about the current structure of the CPC is its emphasis on personnel, selecting people, monitoring them, training them at various times in their careers. From your experience as an international diplomat in many countries and knowing the system in China, what would you want to communicate to the world about the way China builds and trains its officials and leaders that work with the people in China?
Well, I would say that the CPC party is a very mature party. So over the years, it has gained a lot of experience in training and also selecting the best officials, the best people that can run the country. As people understand that China is a very complex society, and it's really not easy to run a country of 1.3 billion people. So you really need people, the leaders, who have to know the Chinese situation. So it's like President Xi Jinping. He has worked from the very, village, started out from village. He was a village head, and he actually has not missed one step in the government. So he actually, worked in the village, in the county, in the city, and in the province, and then became a member of the standing committee of the CPC. So you need these years of experience, of working experience, and also in the government, actually working in the government, to know your ways out. And I think, this is very important. So we have had this process of, training the programs. Actually, this is, I would say, one of the successes of the government. For example, China has only opened up to the outside world for 36 years. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that all the government officials above the county level have been gone through some trainings, and also they have all been abroad, visiting different countries and getting some kind of lectures or training courses, programs outside of China. That is very, very important. And I think that is also a very strong commitment, because that shows that our government is very firm in saying that China should not only be China itself, you should also be part of the world. You must integrate into the world. So they have made a very strong commitment to train the people to open up their horizons, so to speak, so that they not only understand the Chinese situation, but also understand what's going on in the world.
If we look to the future, and if American diplomats or administration ask you, what is the party's mission for China's future? What is the answer?
I think to put it in a very simple way, the party's mission is to accomplish the modernization of the Chinese civilization. As President Xi said in his book, I think that was his first statement when he became General Secretary of the party. He said, people's wish for good life is our goal. I think this best summarizes his thinking about China's future.
And one of these goals for the Communist Party, the ruling party, is for a Chinese democracy. That's a goal that is,
yes.
And this is, I think, an important statement to make. What that means, but it is an affirmative statement. This is not just lip service or just using a word to impress people. There's real intensity about making that happen through various sources, use of internet, use of communications, people participating in governance. It's a process.
Yes, it is a process. And I think, as you mentioned, I fully agree that the goal is to build a socialist democracy. I think that is important because the ultimate goal, actually similar to the American goal, is to bring in a better life for the people. So I sometimes talk about the way we use chopsticks or fork and knife. I said, well, you know, we might be eating by chopsticks and the American people eating by forks and knives, but it does not mean that the fork knives are more superior than the chopsticks. I think as long as we can eat our food and get the best food out of it, I think it's all right. So it could be, you know, our system might be compared to chopsticks, but I think it's the people have used it for thousands of years, and they have produced good results, and they are quite effective. So I think that's fine.
President Xi Jinping calls for new ways to tell China's story well and disseminate China's voice well. Wang Qishan, the party's anti-corruption chief, says that one cannot understand China without understanding the CPC. If the world does not understand the CPC, it is the CPC's responsibility to reach out to the world. The best response to misunderstanding is not to blame foreign media, but to engage in the global marketplace of ideas. That's what this new book series does, offering a clear, confident, comprehensive description of the CPC by the CPC. Here are 8 categories for understanding the CPC: ideology and its developments, history and its legacies, leadership and leadership politics, structure and organization, personnel selection and training, strict discipline and anti-corruption work, contemporary challenges, and future prospects. Foreigners may disagree with the CPC, argue with the CPC, but all who think they know China, all who need to know China, must understand the CPC to be closer to China.